I always told myself not to expect too much, that way disappointment wouldn't hit as hard. But deep down, some part of me still held on to a foolish hope that maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. It wasn't. I woke up on my 22nd birthday to silence. No notifications, no missed calls, no messages from my family. I stared at my phone for a moment, willing it to light up, to prove me wrong, but it never did. My inbox, however, wasn't empty. Friends from college, classmates, and even a professor I barely interacted with had sent their well wishes, but from my own family, nothing. I swallowed the lump in my throat, pushing away the familiar ache creeping in. They're busy, I told myself. They'll text later. It's just morning. Maybe dad's at work. Maybe mum's running errands. Maybe Ethan's still asleep. Maybe. But as the hours ticked by, that fragile hope cracked, little by little. By noon, my phone screen remained disappointingly blank. No messages, no missed calls, nothing. I told myself it didn't matter, that it wasn't a big deal, that it was just another day. But that was a lie. Because it wasn't just another day, it was my birthday, the day I should have felt loved, remembered, important. The day my own parents should have acknowledged my existence, but to them I was nothing more than an afterthought, if I was even that. I sat on the edge of my bed, gripping my phone tightly before finally giving in. Fine, I thought. I'll reach out first. I typed a simple message into the family group chat. Hey, what time are we meeting for dinner tonight? I hit send and waited. 5 minutes, 10, 30, nothing. I put my phone down, swallowing the growing bitterness in my chest. Maybe they're busy, maybe they'll see it later. But deep down, I already knew the truth. They weren't too busy, they just didn't care. By the time evening rolled around, I had given up checking my phone. I went through my day pretending I wasn't bothered. I forced smiles, thanked my friends when they stopped by my dorm with a cupcake and candles, and played along when my roommate dragged me out for coffee. But the empty feeling in my chest never left. By 7 p.m, I couldn't take it anymore. Maybe they just forgot, I reasoned, clinging to the last thread of hope. Maybe if I remind them, they'll realize their mistake. With a deep breath, I picked up my phone and dialed my mum's number. She answered on the third ring, her voice light and cheerful, completely oblivious. Oh, Emma, what's up? I froze. She didn't know. She had no idea. My grip on my phone tightened, but I kept my voice steady. We're still doing dinner tonight, right? There was a pause, a split second too long. Then a sigh. Oh, sweetheart, I should have told you earlier. We're actually going out with Ethan tonight. He has some exciting news. My heart sank. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. Wait. My voice came out hollow. What? Mum chuckled like this was all perfectly normal. Your brother got some wonderful news. We wanted to take him out to celebrate. Just a little family dinner, you understand, right? My stomach twisted. Mom? I said slowly, my voice barely above a whisper. It's my birthday. Silence, a beat too long. Then she laughed. Oh, Emma, don't be so dramatic. We'll do something for you next weekend, okay? I felt my fingers go numb. Next weekend. Like I was some obligation they could schedule at their convenience, like I was a backup plan, a spare, a damn afterthought. From the background, I heard Ethan's voice, casual, smug, entertained. Is that Emma? Tell her not to be mad. I'll bring her back some cake. Cake, like that would somehow make up for this. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't sad anymore, I was furious. But not at Ethan, not even at my mum. I was furious at myself, for hoping, for waiting, for thinking, even for a second, that this year would be any different. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forced my voice to stay steady, and said the only thing I could. Yeah, sure. Have fun. Then I hung up. I stared at my phone, my vision blurring slightly, not from tears, not from sadness, but from the sheer burning rage spreading through my chest. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to just sit there and take it. No, I was done. This time they were going to see exactly what it felt like to be ignored, to be forgotten, to be nothing. And I was going to make sure they regretted it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg for an apology that was never coming. Instead, I made a choice. I chose not to sit there and wallow in the pain my family had inflicted on me. I chose not to spend another birthday feeling like I was invisible. I grabbed my phone and dialed the one person who had always been there for me, Jessica. She picked up on the first ring. "Hey, birthday girl, what's up?" I hesitated for half a second, but then the words just tumbled out. "Jess? They forgot again." Silence. Then a slow, measured inhale. "What?" I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "I texted the family chat this morning, no one responded, so I called my mom and she just completely brushed it off. They're out celebrating Ethan instead." Jessica cursed under her breath. "Are you kidding me?" "Emma, I swear to God." "I don't want to talk about it," I cut in quickly. "Not tonight. Not anymore." She exhaled, then her tone softened. "All right, then come over." I blinked. "What?" "My family's taking me out for dinner tonight," she said simply. "You're coming with us." I almost refused, almost told her I didn't want to intrude, that I didn't want to impose, but then I realized, why the hell not? My own family didn't want me. Jessica's did, so I said okay. And for the first time that day, I felt like I was making the right choice. Jessica's house had always felt more like home than my own. Her parents, David and Laura, had known me since we were kids. They had watched me grow up, watched my parents dismiss me time and time again, and always made sure I knew I was welcome under their roof. When I stepped inside that evening, Laura didn't even hesitate. She pulled me into a warm hug. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she murmured. Something in my chest tightened. Not out of sadness, out of relief. "Thanks, Laura," I said, forcing a small smile. Jessica's dad clapped a hand on my shoulder, grinning. "I hope you're hungry, because we're going all out tonight." Jessica nudged me. "We're going to Baldwin's." I froze. Baldwin's. The same high-end steakhouse my parents used to brag about going to, the one they reserved for special occasions. My parents had never once taken me there. But Jessica's family? They didn't hesitate. I followed them to the car, something warm and unfamiliar settling in my chest. Was this what it was supposed to feel like? To be wanted, to be chosen? Dinner was perfect. The second we walked into Baldwin's, I felt the difference. This wasn't like sitting stiffly at a table with my parents, listening to them subtly pick apart my achievements while worshipping the ground Ethan walked on. This was laughter, real, genuine conversation. David ordered a bottle of wine for the birthday girl, and Laura made the waiter bring out a dessert menu before we had even finished our appetizers. Then, when the waiter brought out a towering slice of chocolate cake with a single candle, Laura beamed at me. "Make a wish, sweetheart." I hesitated. I had spent years wishing for my parents to love me the way I deserved, but for the first time, I didn't need that anymore, so instead, I just smiled, and I blew out the candle. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the wine, maybe it was the way I felt safe for the first time in years, maybe it was just the rage simmering beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed. But as we left the restaurant, I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture of Baldwin's glowing sign, and typed out a caption. "Huge thank you to Jessica and her amazing family for making my birthday special. So grateful to have people who actually care about me." I hit post, and then I waited. It didn't take long. Less than an hour later, my phone started vibrating relentlessly. First, the texts. "Mum, Emma, what is this?" "Dad, take that post down right now." Then the calls. 1, 2, 3. I let them ring. Jessica glanced at my screen, unimpressed. "They see it," I smirked. "Oh, yeah." David, who had been listening from the driver's seat, let out a low chuckle. "Good, let them stew." I had never seen my parents panic like this before, but I wasn't finished yet. By the time I got back to Jessica's house, my voicemail was full, and the texts kept coming. "Emma, call me back. This is humiliating. Do you know how many people have seen this? You're making us look like bad parents." That one made me laugh, because that was all they cared about. Not that they had hurt me, not that they had abandoned me, just that other people had noticed. Jessica glanced at me. "You gonna call them?" I exhaled. "Might as well," she nodded, settling onto the couch beside me. "Put it on speaker." I did. The second my mother picked up, she was already yelling. What the hell do you think you're doing, Emma? Do you have any idea how many people have called us about this? I leaned back, completely unbothered. You mean the post where I thanked the people who actually showed up for my birthday? She gasped like I had just slapped her. How dare you try to embarrass us like this? You know we had plans tonight. This was important for Ethan. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Because his celebration was obviously more important than my birthday? She scoffed. Don't be so dramatic. We would have done something for you next weekend. I shook my head, feeling something snap inside me. I wasn't even angry anymore, just done. You know, Mom, I said, my voice eerily calm. If you didn't want to look like bad parents, maybe you shouldn't act like bad parents. Silence. Then my father's voice, cold and clipped. Take the post down, now. I smirked. No. His nostrils flared. Emma, I'm not playing games. If you don't take it down, there will be consequences. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, like what? There was a long pause. Then, finally, we're coming over. Jessica's dad, who had been listening the entire time, cracked his knuckles. Let them come. I hung up, setting my phone down. Jessica arched an eyebrow. They're pissed. I grinned. Good. And for the first time in my life, I had the upper hand. The doorbell rang 3 times, hard and fast, not a polite knock, but a demand. Jessica's dad, David, barely lifted an eyebrow from where he sat on the couch, but I could tell from the way his jaw tightened that he was preparing himself for whatever storm was about to hit. Jessica glanced at me, silently asking if I was ready. I wasn't sure if ready was the right word, but I knew one thing: I wasn't afraid anymore. David stood first, making his way to the door, his movements slow, deliberate. He cracked his knuckles as he opened it, stepping aside just enough to block the doorway. And there they were. My parents stood on the porch, my father's face already red with fury, my mother's lips pressed into a thin, tight line. They looked past him, their eyes locking onto me like I was the problem they had come to fix. Emma, my mother snapped, her voice sharp as glass. Get outside now. I didn't move, didn't blink. No, my father's hands clenched into fists. You're coming out here. We are not doing this in front of strangers. David let out a quiet, unimpressed chuckle. Strangers? That's funny. We're the ones who actually celebrated her birthday. That landed like a slap. My father's eyes flicked toward him, his posture stiffening, but he didn't respond. He turned back to me, nostrils flaring. This isn't a debate, Emma. We are your parents. You will do as we say. I tilted my head, my lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. Oh, so now I'm your daughter? That's funny, because for most of my life, I didn't feel like one. My mother sucked in a sharp breath, like I had struck her. How dare you speak to us like that after everything we've done for you? I let out a short, cold laugh. Everything you've done for me? Like what exactly? Ignoring me? Making me feel like an afterthought? Letting Ethan take whatever he wanted while I sat on the sidelines waiting for something, anything, that would make me feel like I mattered? I took a slow step forward, watching their faces twist with anger, but not denial. Because they knew. They had always known. My mother's face hardened. Emma, stop this nonsense. You are embarrassing us. People are talking about that post. Do you understand how humiliating this is? I exhaled through my nose, shaking my head. There it is. There's the real reason you're here. It's not because you care about how I feel. It's not because you regret what you did. It's because your little perfect family image is cracking, and now you're scrambling to do damage control. My father's patience snapped. He stepped forward, his voice dropping into the cold, authoritarian tone he had used to control me my whole life. Take the post down, right now. I smiled, slow, deliberate, full of something dark and amused. No, his nostrils flared. I am not asking, and I'm not listening. He stepped even closer, his presence towering over me. This was the part where, as a kid, I would have shrunk back, where I would have dropped my gaze, nodded obediently, and done whatever he wanted. But I wasn't that kid anymore. So I stood tall. I met his eyes head on, and I didn't flinch. His face darkened, his voice low and full of warning. You will regret this. Regret what? I asked, my voice calm, unfazed. Finally standing up for myself? refusing to let you manipulate me, realizing that I don't need you. Silence. My mother, realizing that my father's intimidation tactics weren't working anymore, changed strategies. Her voice softened, her eyes filling with something that almost looked like sadness. Almost. Emma, sweetheart, you don't know what you're doing. You are making a mistake. You are turning your back on your own family. I let out a slow breath, feeling the last remnants of guilt slip away. No, Mom. You turned your back on me a long time ago. Her expression twisted. You're being ridiculous. We raised you. We gave you everything. And if you don't stop this now, you're going to lose it all. And there it was. The final card, the ultimate threat. I felt it coming before she even said it. She lifted her chin, her voice cold and sharp. You will lose everything, Emma, including your inheritance. I blinked, then I laughed, right in her face. The sound of it made her visibly flinch. My father's face went pale with rage. You think this is funny? I grinned, shaking my head. You actually thought that would work, didn't you? I let my amusement fade, my eyes going cold. Let me make something very clear. I don't need your money. I don't need your last name. I don't need you. My mother's mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time in my life, I saw it. The fear. Not fear of losing me. Not fear that they had hurt me. Fear that they no longer had control. And for the first time, I realized that I had all the power now. David, who had been watching silently from the doorway, finally stepped forward. His voice was calm, but final. I think it's time for you two to leave. My father bristled, his fists clenched at his sides, but my mother reached for his arm, shaking her head. She knew. They had already lost. She turned to me one last time. Her voice was thin, trembling. You will regret this, Emma. I held her gaze, my expression steady. No, Mum, you will. She swallowed, blinking hard. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. My father lingered for a moment longer, his eyes burning into mine like he was trying to memorize my face. Then he followed her. I watched them go, feeling nothing. No guilt, no sadness, just relief. As the door shut behind them, Jessica was at my side in an instant, her hand slipping into mine. Are you okay? I turned to her, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Yeah, I said, exhaling slowly. I think I am. The text message came in just past midnight. Ethan, you really screwed things up this time. I stared at it for a long second before locking my phone and tossing it onto the nightstand. No response, no reaction. Ethan wasn't worth it. But my parents, they still had consequences waiting for them. I straightened up in my chair, my pulse steady, my mind suddenly clear. This wasn't about revenge, this was about truth. For years, they had controlled the narrative. They had built a carefully constructed image of the Carter family. Respected, well-off, close-knit. A lie. And it was time for everyone to see the cracks. I grabbed my laptop, opened my inbox, and started typing. I kept my words simple, honest, brutal, no embellishments, just facts. I wrote about the years of neglect, the blatant favoritism, the way my parents had spent my entire life treating me like I was a burden instead of a daughter. I described how every moment of my childhood had been centered around Ethan's successes while mine were dismissed. I laid out exactly how they had made me feel like an afterthought, like my existence was secondary to maintaining their pristine public image. Then I attached the proof. Screenshots of my mother's dismissive texts on my birthday. The ones where she told me not to be so dramatic, where she laughed about forgetting, the ones where she panicked only when people noticed. The messages from my father, cold and unyielding, demanding that I take down the Instagram post because I was humiliating them. Not because they had hurt me, but because people were talking. And of course, Ethan's message, tell her we'll save her some cake. I read the email twice, making sure there wasn't a single word I wanted to change. Then, without hesitation, I hit send. For the first time in my life, there was peace. No guilt, no second guessing, just relief. The next morning, I woke up late, the sunlight streaming through the window, no buzzing phone, no lingering tension curling in my chest. It felt strange, good, right. Jessica's family didn't bring it up, didn't ask if I was okay, they didn't need to. They just let me be, let me sit at their kitchen table with a cup of coffee like I belonged there. Like I was wanted, like I mattered. And the best part? I didn't feel out of place anymore. I didn't have to prove my worth. I didn't have to fight for attention. I could just exist. Then my phone vibrated. I sighed, already knowing who it was before I even looked. Mom. Emma, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Then another. Mom, please take the email back. You don't understand what this is doing to us. By afternoon, the desperation started creeping in. Mom, Emma, I am begging you, don't destroy this family's reputation. There it was, the real fear. Not losing me, losing face. I stared at my phone, letting the weight of her words settle over me, and then I did the only thing that felt right. I blocked her number. A minute later, my father's messages started coming in. His texts were shorter, harsher. Dad, you are making a mistake. Dad, you think you can just walk away from this family? You're wrong. Dad, you will regret this. I blocked him too, and just like that, they were gone. No more waiting for an apology that would never come. No more desperately hoping for a love that never existed. I had cut them off. And I had never felt freer. That night, I was sitting outside on the back porch, watching the sky darken when Jessica came out and sat beside me. She didn't say anything for a while, just leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. Then, after a long pause, she murmured, "You did it?" I exhaled slowly, my lips curving into a small, real smile. "Yeah. You okay?" I thought about it, really thought about it, and for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't have to lie. "Yeah," I said, my voice steady. "I think I am." The days passed quietly after that. For the first time in my life, there was no weight pressing down on my chest, no lingering anxiety coiling in the back of my mind, waiting for the next inevitable moment of disappointment. I was free. It was strange at first. For so long, my identity had been tied to them, to their indifference, their expectations, their ability to make me feel small. Every decision I had made, every action I had taken had always been overshadowed by the thought of how they would react. But now there was nothing. No messages, no guilt trips, just silence. And I had never loved silence more. I spent the next few weeks at Jessica's house, letting myself breathe. Her family didn't ask for explanations. They didn't pry, didn't push, didn't treat me like I was broken. They just made space for me. And it turned out that space, being surrounded by people who actually cared, who didn't expect anything from me except to just be, was exactly what I needed. It was in the little things. Jessica's mum knocking on my door in the morning to ask if I wanted coffee. Her dad tossing me the car keys without hesitation when I mentioned I needed to run errands. A younger brother, Noah, making sarcastic comments about how I had basically moved in, but then adding, "Which is fine, I guess, you're cooler than Jess anyway." It was effortless. It was real. It was family. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after I had cut my parents off, Jessica and I were sitting outside on the patio sipping lemonade. She had her feet propped up on the chair across from her, sunglasses perched on her nose, and an unread book in her lap. "You look different," she said suddenly. I raised an eyebrow. "I do?" She nodded, tilting her head as she studied me. "Yeah, like tense." I let out a small laugh, shaking my head. "Well, considering I don't have to deal with their constant bullshit anymore." "I'd say that makes sense," Jessica grinned. "So, what now?" That was the question, wasn't it? For years, my entire life had revolved around surviving them. Trying to please them, trying to be enough, trying to hold on to scraps of love they had never actually given me. But now? Now, I got to figure out what I wanted. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating. I took a slow breath, letting the warmth of the sun settle on my skin. "I don't know yet," I admitted, but for the first time, I think I'm okay with that. Jessica smirked. "So, you're just going to be a mystery girl, wandering the world, figuring life out?" I rolled my eyes. "I have college to finish first, genius." She nudged me playfully. "Well, once you're done, we should do something reckless. Move to a new city, open a coffee shop, go backpacking through Europe." "Something insane," I laughed. "I'll consider it." She studied me for a second, then said, softer, "I'm proud of you, you know." I swallowed, my throat suddenly tight. No one had ever said that to me before, not once. I nodded, unable to say anything else. Jessica didn't push, she just smiled and squeezed my hand. And in that moment, I knew. I was never going back. About a month later, I got a letter in the mail. A real handwritten letter, something I hadn't seen from my parents in years. Jessica handed it to me at the door, her expression unreadable. "It's from them," she said quietly. I stared at it, debating whether to open it at all, but in the end, curiosity won. I tore it open, unfolding the letter with steady hands. "Emma, we don't know how else to reach you. We don't understand why you're doing this. You are still our daughter, and this family is still your home. You will regret walking away. We raised you. We gave you everything. We don't deserve this treatment. Your father and I are deeply hurt by your actions. If you take back the things you said, if you come home and apologize, we can move past this. But if you continue down this path, know that you are turning your back on everything we built for you. We hope you make the right choice." "Mom," I stared at the words for a long time, feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness, just confirmation that I had made the right choice. There was no apology in that letter, no accountability, just manipulation. They didn't miss me. They missed control. I folded the letter neatly and set it down on the kitchen table. Then, without a second thought, I picked it up and threw it away. Jessica watched the whole thing, her arms crossed, waiting for me to say something. I took a deep breath and met her gaze. "I don't need them," I said. My voice didn't shake, it didn't waver, it was the truth. Jessica's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "You finally see it, don't you?" I let out a slow exhale, a weight I hadn't even realized was still lingering, finally lifting. "Yeah," I murmured. "I do." Cutting them off was one thing. Moving on was another. For years, my identity had been shaped by my parents' rejection, by my desperate need for their approval, by the constant, crushing feeling that I wasn't enough. I wasn't just walking away from them, I was walking away from the version of myself that had been waiting for them to change. It wasn't easy. Some days I caught myself reaching for my phone out of habit. Some nights I still heard their voices in my head. But every single day it got easier. And every single day I felt lighter. One night, a few weeks later, I was sitting outside with Jessica again, the cool evening air wrapping around us. She was sipping a glass of wine, her bare feet tucked under her, looking at me like she knew exactly what was going on inside my head. "You thinking about them?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not really." She raised an eyebrow, waiting for me to be honest. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Okay, maybe a little, but not in the way I used to." She smiled, setting her glass down. "So, what's next?" I exhaled slowly, considering her words. For so long, my life had been dictated by them, by their expectations, their dismissals, their approval or lack of it. Every decision I made, every step I took had been shadowed by what they thought, by what they wanted, by what they decided I was worth. But they weren't here anymore, and for the first time, my future wasn't theirs, it was mine. I leaned back, looking up at the sky, a slow smile creeping onto my lips. "Now," I said, "I finally start living for myself." Jessica's fingers brushed against mine, warm and steady. "And what does that look like?" I laughed softly. "I guess I get to figure that out." And that was the moment I let go. Not just of them, of everything. The hurt, the resentment, the years of feeling like I wasn't enough. They were just people now, flawed, selfish, irrelevant. I wasn't waiting for their approval. I wasn't waiting for their love, because I had found something better. A real family, one that had nothing to do with blood and everything to do with choice. Because in the end, family isn't about DNA. It's not about last names or inheritances, or holiday cards with forced smiles. Family is the people who choose you, the ones who show up, the ones who stand beside you, not out of obligation, but because they want to. And I had finally found mine.